All right, we're live. I'm Mike. This is Jeff, the CEO of Thorn Technologies. Thanks for joining us for episode 2 of Office Hours. So this one will be exciting because we'll be talking to the only person who actually has the power to fire me live during one of these. So we'll be working without a net here. Who knows what's going to happen? We're going to start something new though, just like a fun topic to kind of kick these things off. So Jeff is from New Jersey. He and I have had conversations about pizza and subs and how, in Maryland, where we are based, it's harder sometimes to find stuff that's as good as it is in some other areas. New Jersey being one of them. And I've made lots of trips to New Jersey for pizza and subs because my wife is from there. So, Jeff, if I were going to head to New Jersey, where's the first place I should go for pizza and subs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, thanks for having me, first of all, Mike. This is fun. I'm happy to talk a little bit about how we got started. But pizza is also a great topic. It's hard to find something good in Maryland, especially when you grew up in New Jersey, where I grew up, North Jersey. There's good pizza pretty much everywhere. So yeah, I can't even think of a specific place. Any kind of New York style pizza in New Jersey and New York is good to have.
It's
Subs
always like
too are different.
Yeah, like the smaller places.
Yeah, it's like a little shop, just a little shop in the corner is what you have. Like Pizza House is what I had growing up. It's like it was just a mom and pop place on the corner, and it was not a chain. It was awesome.
Yeah, so the place we used to go in New Jersey with my wife's family was called Mama Rosa's, and I heard it's gone now.
Yeah.
And then for subs, we used to like to go. Lived fairly close to Princeton, and we'd like to go to Hoagie Haven sometimes.
Oh God, I've been there. That place is amazing.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
Yeah, that place is amazing. We had a sub shop in the town that I grew up in. That's called the Pink Submarine. It had like little, 2 arcade games in the back that would be a cool place to hang out when you were a kid. And the subs were unbeatable. I mean, I think Jersey Mike's, we talked about that. They come close, but
yeah, they are the closest like chain.
Yeah.
So that's like a sub shop.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say on pizza, in this one, I still find this, I'm blown away by this. So for 5 years, my family lived in Connecticut, and we were right outside of New Haven. And I had no idea New Haven was known for its pizza until we moved there, or maybe sometime right before that. So my wife,
isn't that Mystic Pizza? Isn't that? Oh, I guess it's Mystic.
Mystic, Connecticut, is further toward the border with Rhode Island. But so my wife from New Jersey always said New Jersey pizza is the best in the world, and I agreed with her too because I had the pizza when I was dating her in New Jersey, and I was like, okay, yep, this is it. So we go to Connecticut and we start trying these famous pizza places in New Haven, and the first one we went is Frank Pepe's, which has been there since 1927 or something like that.
Wow.
They've won all these awards. While I was up there, I learned, reading up on it, they were ranked in top pizza places in the country a lot. So we go there and have pizza, and as we're eating it, my wife, New Jersey raised, says, I think this is the best pizza I've ever had. I just couldn't believe it.
She's a traitor.
Her New Jersey pride went right down the drain. But yeah, there's 4 big ones in New Haven. They're the original big ones. It's Pepe's, Modern, and Sally's. It's this rivalry, these 3. And then there's another restaurant called Bar, which has really good pizza too, and sometimes kind of works its way into the discussions, but all of them are so good. So
I don't know what it is. I don't know if people say it's the water. People, especially in New York City, which same with the bagels and the pizza crust are the same way. It's just there's something very unique about it, and it's just hard to beat. I think it's really interesting how different it is outside of that. It's outside of the Northeast. Pizza is so different everywhere else. Chicago has cool pizza. It's great, but it's not real pizza. It's you have to, want Chicago pizza, and it's delicious.
It's a totally different food category.
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't even say oh, should we talk about whether the pizza from Chicago is better than like the pizza from New York City or something.
No,
They're
it's
like
like apples and oranges.
deep dish pizza is like such a different dish.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
And then,
So anyway, we're gonna before we move on to the story about how you got started with Thorn Technologies and
sure,
SFTP Gateway, I'll just let people know we're moving on from the pizza topic, but feel free to argue about it for eternity in the comments of this
yeah.
video
And if you have
and
a great
tell
place
us,
to try, leave that too.
yeah, especially if it's close to Columbia, Maryland, where we're based, then we
Yeah,
could try it and maybe post about it on social media. So follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter for pizza adventures. Um, so we want to talk about a couple of things, and I think before we get into SFTP Gateway, um, can you talk a little bit about your background? You know, how you got into tech, and
mhm.
then arrived at a point where you wanted to start your own company.
Sure, sure, happy to. I have a tech background, so I think I knew at a really young age that I wanted to get into computers and programming and that kind of thing. And you know, I chose that. I went to Lehigh University. I chose computer engineering as my degree because I was just really impressed by that program there, and I knew that's what I wanted to focus my career on. Um, and that was a really great experience. But even then, I think I kind of had the entrepreneurial itch a little bit. Um, but my first job out of college was the complete opposite. I worked for a government contractor who did software development for NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, which is what brought me to Maryland, which was a really great experience. It was really cool to be part of the whole NASA scene for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I only stayed there 2 or 3 years before wanting to follow that entrepreneurial itch a little bit. So in the late 90s, I went to go work for a really exciting .com, sweetheart in our area. The company was called Aether Systems. And they were doing revolutionary stuff with mobile at the time, especially. Like this is before the iPhone, before even data plans or anything like that. They were doing some really cool software development. They had unique data relationships with the carriers, and so we were making apps on BlackBerry pagers, like that were like little monochrome things, and but we
Yeah.
were letting you know, stock traders at Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch and those guys like buy and sell stocks with their little BlackBerry pagers. Um, so it was like way ahead of its time, but it was a really awesome place to work. And they grew super fast, and so it was really exciting to be part of that whole like .com boom. But then unfortunately the bust too, right? So I think
Right.
this company had I think 2 IPOs. They raised I think almost $1 billion. They gobbled up company like tech companies all over the Mid-Atlantic area, and grew from like a couple hundred people when I joined to like almost 2,000 people in like less than a year or something. And I don't
That's like
I don't
such
know.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
That's
crazy.
the
It was a
story of
huge.
that. That's the story of that time. Like
Yeah, I
that
know.
was
And
what
it
was
was,
happening. Yeah.
yeah. And so it was easy to be lured away to that excitement from a kind of like a government contractor job. Um, but I learned a lot and got really into like mobile that's where a lot of, we do a lot of mobile kind of development stuff here at Thorn Technologies. That's really where a lot of my background comes from. What was really cool too is I met some amazing people there, and I still am, tight with them today too. Even the fact that that company grew so big so quickly, you met a lot of really cool people. Like they acquired a lot of companies, and so you met a lot of people who were former CEOs or former VPs of engineering, or just some really cool people who all built up their own companies and then kind of came together. And then when the bubble burst and everybody went their separate ways, it was a great network of people to still, be part of, because everybody went off to do their own, next thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great network of people that to have been part of that has definitely helped, with Thorn Technologies too, just who you know in the area. So yeah, so then after that kind of .com bubble burst, I really had the entrepreneurial itch, and so I went to go work at a brand new startup, and this was like 5 guys. I was the only tech person. We were trying to get into the whole RFID space, which was like a really new technology at the time. So we developed like a middleware framework for RFID just to manage all the data. And it was pretty cool, actually. It was a really good um, piece of software that we built. And we were doing some really cool things, not just RFID, but we're doing like mesh wireless sensor networks and all that kind of stuff, which is a pretty hot technology today. I think that business was fun, and I learned a lot about building a business from the ground up. We took that from maybe 2001 all the way to 2007 when the economy started turning, and then we ran out of money. Me being the only tech person, I ended up doing consulting work for like an insurance company, which was totally not related. Um, but in hindsight, it was actually a fantastic experience because I learned all about building general ledger systems and what double entry bookkeeping is and all that kind of stuff, which helped us a ton at Thorn Technologies. I don't know if we've built a mobile payment system that is being used in Southeast Asia right now. And
Oh,
so
and that
having
goes
that,
back to that.
yeah. So having
That's
that
cool. I didn't
financial
know
and
that.
accounting experience, like, really paid off because now take the mobile experience from the Aether days, and then the accounting and general ledger bookkeeping experience from working for the insurance company. We were in a perfect position to build like some fintech solutions that so we built a mobile payment platform that's still being used in the country of Myanmar, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew
So
that, but I did not know the backstory on how you got experience with that. So that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, and that came a little bit later. I mean, after 2007, I really went out on my own, and I became an independent contractor. Again, that network of people that I had known from the Aether days, helped a lot. Um, I went to go work for a company called Acuity Mobile, where Kara Atkinson, who is our director of operations now at Thorn Technologies, where she was working at the time under Greg Smith, who was a great guy at Aether, who's also been a very successful entrepreneur in our area. Um, so did some consulting for them, kind of, you know. So that was, man, was that 2008, I guess. So it's been a while, yeah. And then so then, yeah, just being an independent contractor for a couple of years, I started getting more work than I can handle on my own. So I reached out to some friends, and I met Dan, who's our CTO today. So he and I have been working together for a long time also. Dan started just helping me with some software projects. So he and I would work together on a few things, and we had a client that we were building like a CRM system for, like from scratch. So Dan did a lot of that development. He did a great job while I was doing a lot of the mobile stuff still. So we kind of started as like a team of developers. Um, and then when Acuity Mobile got acquired, they kind of went away. Our business was sort of growing at the same time. It was kind of funny. I want to backtrack a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Going out on your own is a scary thing.
Hmm.
And I say this in case there's any other future entrepreneurs out there who are listening. But it's the best decision I feel like I've ever made in my life. My first child, my daughter, was born in 2008, in December of 2008. I started Thorn Technologies in November of 2008.
That's a lot of change all at once.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Like it was like a really crazy time, and God bless my wife for being super supportive. Like she knew that this was something I always wanted to do, and she supported me the whole time, the whole way, and that meant a lot. And I think that helped a lot. And you know, I had my first client lined up um, under Thorn, my newly formed company, Thorn Technologies, and it was that insurance company that I was working for. But then in 2008, the financial industry completely collapsed too. And so
Right.
the first thing they did was, let go of all contractors, including me. So it was like, I just had a kid. I just started my business and I just lost my first client. So it was kind of scary for a while. But that, having that network of people in the area really helped a lot. That's, definitely where I got more work in the mobile space, doing a lot of stuff with Acuity Mobile at the time. Met some more amazing people there. Um, I think one of the, you know, some of the original founders of MapQuest were involved with that. And then, and it was really exciting. Just some of the people we got to meet over the years.
Yeah, I have
Uh,
two questions for you, or
yeah,
I guess it's a two-part question based on
sure.
something you just said. So, um, the first part is, at what point did that fear go away, if it ever goes away as an entrepreneur? And then when you were about to make the leap and kind of start up and you got that first client, were you doing a lot of trying to talk yourself out of it? Like, I can't take this kind of a risk. I need to just go get a 9 to 5 job. Can you talk a little bit kind of about what you were going through and how you got through those periods?
Yeah, I think again, having my wife be super supportive and know that this was something I've always wanted to do was a huge help. I think that helped me get through a lot of it more than anything. Um, the way that I looked at it too was looking for my first, real client was really not much different than looking for a job. Like if I
Mhm.
could like, all right, like I can go look for a contracting position and just, charge someone an hourly rate just as easily as I can go look for a 9 to 5 job and try to get a salary.
Right.
So, and at the time, I guess the companies I were talking to, I think almost wanted to the flexibility of paying a contractor hourly instead of taking on a whole new employee. So I think the timing, in hindsight, actually worked in my favor.
Hmm.
Um, and then it didn't last. That fear really didn't last very long because I quickly got busy and more busy than I could handle. And again, my wife was home with our new baby at this time, and I'm like now working my butt off, like 60 hours a week. Um, so that was hard too. Trying when you are on your own, every hour you're working is tied to how well the company does essentially.
Right.
So I was working a lot of hours, um, and then I knew pretty soon I needed to hire some help, and that's where Dan came in as. Um, And he's, been with us ever since. Dan started as a contractor to me too, initially, but he is an amazing developer. He's a great guy and just really been a great member of the team from the very beginning. And then same with Kara. Like she and I have been working together. Even I don't know if I mentioned this, but Kara and I even worked together back at Ether Systems. So she and I have known each other a long time. And I mention this because I think what we've built here is really important for a small company. It's the culture is awesome. We're like a family. Everyone really gets along, and just that's so important. I think when you're a small group
Yeah.
and you're trying to really do something big, and so I value that every day. Just like the team that we have is just really amazing here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I've been here a little over a year, and one of the things that I figured out pretty quickly was how positive the environment was. And I think one of the ways you can tell that is how there were a bunch of people who'd been here a really long time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's always a good sign. It's like, wait, how long have you worked here? All right, and you,
Yeah.
and okay, cool. Then all right, like it wasn't like people were like there for a year and gone. So,
Yeah. No, you've been a
um,
great addition too, Mike. You fit right in. It's awesome.
thanks, man. It's been a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you guys were just getting started there, where were you working? Do you guys have like a Bill Gates starting in your garage sort of story, or was that the Apple guys? I
Yeah.
might have been
No,
getting.
no, yeah. That is a good question because I feel like for a long time, one of the things I struggled with for a really long time was like, how do I make this feel like a real company, right? Like I'm just a developer who's just still, working as a developer, right? And for the longest time, I didn't even call it, uh, you know, a company. It was just, I was a freelance guy for a long time. And
Right,
so,
with a team of other people
yeah,
doing contracting for you, right? Yeah.
yeah, a little bit, yeah. But I still am to this day very much involved in some of the engineering side of things, just because I love
Yeah.
it. Although I probably do it more than I should actually. Um, but but yeah, there came to a point I think where we were getting big enough now. We probably hired a few other people after Dan even, and we're maybe at like 4 or 5 of us, and we're all working remote at our home, still at our homes. And we like, all right, well, we need a place to really get together and plan and make business decisions, right? So we started with like kind of like a virtual office space where we didn't even have like desks. It was like the cheapest like virtual office space plan you can get, where it gave us the ability to schedule access to a conference room. And that was it. But it was
Yeah.
our business's mailing address for a long time. So really, we paid for the address of an office building. And once a week, we would go in and sit in the conference room and kind of do our weekly status meetings, which we still do to this day. Um, and those are fun because it's like a chance for everybody to get together and just kind of, get on the same page and check in with each other. We're still, as you know, largely a remote team. We have 2 offices now, one out in Westminster and one in Columbia, Maryland. But we also have employees who live in Seattle. We have contractors in New York. So, I mean, we're still pretty, spread out. So
Right.
having the status meetings, I think, are a great kind of weekly thing I look forward to, just as a way to get everybody together. But so we started that, tradition early on in this virtual office space. Um, and that's when it started to feel a little bit more like a real company, I think. Um, but then in, I guess, 2015, maybe 2015, we were growing closer to 10 people now. And we just needed a real space. And so we found our office in Columbia that we're still in today, that, is our headquarters. And we've been there ever since.
Yeah. And at what point was it that so I guess I'd like to hear about kind of how the early days of SFTP Gateway kind of
Yeah.
came together. And then just in that time right before that, like what was some of the work that was happening, and did you see yourself becoming a company that was going to have a product rather than doing the consulting work? And I'd like to hear about that transition.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a definitely. So SFTP Gateway was born out of a need, right? So we we've adopted the cloud and Amazon Web Services, specifically, a long time ago. Being that virtual company that we were, where we're kind of working out of coffee shops or at home or wherever. Um, we had clients that we were developing software for. A lot of them are in the mobile space, were in the mobile space, and still are today. But some of them being like the big mobile network carriers, Like we do some, we built a SMS marketing software for them that sends out, 10 million text messages a day. But we never had a data center. We never bought physical hardware. We never, had, to worry about real machines because we put all of our software in the cloud going all the way back to 2012 or 13, like really on. So we've been in AWS for a long time.
That was early days for AWS, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it was a perfect
how
solution
long?
for us. It
Yeah,
was like pay for what you need, only for what you need. So the pricing model was perfect. Didn't have to buy any physical hardware that we had no place to put it. So it just made total sense for us being a young company that was just trying to get off the ground.
pay an electric bill for running
Yeah,
all
yeah.
those servers,
Yeah, the
cooling them.
business model was undoubtable. It made, we would not have been a successful company today if we did not get into the cloud early.
Oh
That,
wow, that's a
yeah,
good take. Yeah.
yeah,
Because of everything you would have had to invest in infrastructure at that point,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the overhead and the capital needs were, a barrier. We just couldn't do it. Um, and we gained some great experience by doing it. It's been, over 10 years now. We have all of our developers have AWS certifications. Like all the software that we develop today is almost optimized or designed from the start to run in the cloud. So it like, that's just part of our business now.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where our first product came along too. So going back to what we were doing, we were primarily a services-based company where we would get hired to, we would help other businesses develop their software applications. But that's a really tough business model to grow because it's almost like a chicken and the egg situation. You need the business to pay people to do the work, but you can't get the business unless you have the people to do the work. So it's
Right.
like, it's really hard to grow. And it's like, you know, um, and even if you have the people, you know, every hour of your time equates to how well the business does and the profitability of the company. And so the only way to get more profitable is to hire more people and bill more hours. And so that's a really hard business to scale.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to get into the product side of things, you know, early on, because scaling a product is fun and exciting, and the idea of, you know, people buying your software and using it all hours of the day and it's not equal to an hour of your time is the dream. It's
Right.
really
Making
exciting.
money
Yeah,
while you sleep.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's exciting. It's super exciting. And
Was
so,
SFTP Gateway the first product, or did like the OnGo solution, for example, did that come first?
well, the ongo solution was something, yeah, so the ongo solution was something that we were hired to build.
Mhm.
So, that wasn't necessarily our product to sell. We got hired to build it. um, so the SFTP Gateway came about, and this is what we've always done over the years, is like being heavily into technology and doing solutions for our actual customers. We see firsthand what the pain points are and like what customers need and where there's maybe like a gap in solutions that are out there on the shelf,
Mhm.
for people to use. And that's exactly what happened with SFTP Gateway. We were building an application for the mobile carriers to, they had to send us a lot of data via SFTP, and that was the only way that they could transfer data. It was all about, their marketing campaigns and, what messages they wanted to send out that day. SFTP is secure and encrypted, so they had a corporate policy that they only could send it this way. But our software was running in the cloud. And so we're like, how do we get this data that they're sending us into the cloud where our applications need it? And so there was a huge gap there. And, so we built the early version of SFTP Gateway to do exactly that. It was, an SFTP server that would let our clients send us the files, but then it would automatically, save the data into S3 buckets in the cloud, where our
Did
applications would
anything
just
exist
scoop
at
them
the
up.
time like it? So
Not
sorry
at
to
the
cut you
time,
off.
no. At the time,
Like
no.
it was
Yeah,
before AWS transfer,
yeah.
but
Before it was
nobody
transfer.
else had a product available. Was the marketplace a thing yet, or was the product developed before the marketplace and then rolled out there when that came into existence?
No, the marketplace existed. We
Okay.
didn't sell it. We never sold it any other way, but it definitely predated AWS transfer, which we kind of knew would be pretty successful on the marketplace because there wasn't really another option at the time.
Hmm.
And sure enough, it like took off right away. I think we released it to the AWS marketplace in 2017. Um, we ended up building this thing ourselves maybe 4 or 5 times on different projects that we had. Finally, after the fifth time, we were just like, this is crazy. If we needed this service so many times, how many other people must need this? And so we literally, a version one was essentially like an MVP, minimum viability product that was very basic. It didn't even have a user interface. It was really just all command line driven. But we hunkered down for just a few weeks and packaged it up and put it on the marketplace to see what would happen. And that was a huge lesson too, is like you can spend forever just building and building and building and building and never release it. And then you won't get that feedback. So that was a valuable lesson that I learned in this whole process, is like putting it out there, release it to the public, you get the feedback, and that can help really drive the direction of the product and your business, right? So
Right.
I think it was really risky and scary putting that initial version out there, but I'm so glad we did, because we're now on version 3. We've made some huge improvements. um, version 1, I was saying, did take off really quickly. Like we were, our guess was correct that there were a lot of people who were just like us, who were developing applications for the cloud, but they had no good way to get the data in there. So, our month over month growth was like, exponential. We were more than doubling sales every month, all the way up until Amazon released AWS transfer.
Right.
And then our growth slowed down a bit there. But I'm happy to say that it never went down. We kind of like flattened out our growth on AWS. And so I think our product really still competes very well with AWS transfer. There's some benefits of it. It is a lot easier to set up and use. It's less expensive. It is scalable. And so you can have high availability setup, but you could also have your own static IP addresses. So that's really helpful for IT environments where you can whitelist your IP addresses for their security firewall rules. So there's a lot of benefits to using our product. As I mentioned, we're on version 3 now, which is the best performing version to date. We really kind of rewrote everything from scratch on version 3, including real simple to use admin dashboard. But even the back end it was built from the ground up to be super performant and optimized for the cloud. And there is no middle layer. So, the first 2 versions would upload a document to the cloud. I mean, to a server in the cloud. And then once it was complete, it would then push it to cloud storage from that server. And that
Okay.
ended up being a bottleneck. So with version 3, we kind of skipped that intermediary step, and it just streams the bytes right from, the SFTP client straight into cloud storage. So it can scale very easily and very quickly.
Yeah. Um, a couple questions for you about, what things were like right after the product launched. You mentioned, you know, it was, I guess you guys were nervous, or you're thinking like, okay, we're just going to launch this thing to the
Yeah.
world.
I
Um,
don't even know if I
but
told everybody I was doing it, honestly.
well, and
Yeah.
what was it like after you launched it? How long was it until you knew, whoa, this thing's moving some units? It's
Yeah.
getting
Yeah, I think it
there's a lot
came
of
as a little,
usage, and yeah,
yeah, came as a little bit of a surprise to everybody. Um, we had to start moving quickly. Like, we didn't have plans to do customer support. We quickly ran into, issues and certain scenarios that people were using it for that we just didn't expect or count on. Um, you know, we had to kind of uh, adjust our way of working and kind of go with the flow now that was happening. And so I think we've got a great support team here. It's led by Rob and Bryce, who um, from early on, they were making our customer the top priority, and that was a huge reason for our success in the beginning as
mhm,
well. Having that white glove service is kind of what we joked. Rob is so good at just listening to what people need and helping them through their problems. And it would lead to some really positive feedback and good reviews on the marketplace. And so seeing that 5-star rating and all of these positive comments, and most of them are related to the quality of the customer support, I think gave people confidence that, hey, this product is actually a real thing and there's a real people behind it who's actually available and responsive and will help you if you get stuck or having problems. And that early on, from even version 1, I think is what helped our growth in the beginning and still remains true today.
yeah. No, I mean, we get great feedback from people, which I always find this really interesting with product support.
Yeah.
Um, when somebody comes to you with an issue that are upset about or could
Mhm.
potentially be upset about, and then
Yeah.
they actually leave that interaction feeling even better about the
Yeah.
product than they
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
before they had the issue come up.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen over and over again,
Hmm.
with Rob and Bryce talking to people, and like that one person recently told Bryce in a comment back to him, like, "You've just been raised to like superhero status."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's great. I
it's
mean,
I
yeah, because
love
I think
that kind of feedback.
sometimes people are in a pinch and we've been there and we know what it's like to be in their shoes. We still have our own customers that we're using our own products for. And so when you're in a deadline or production outage situation, it's stressful. And so when you reach out to support, you know, we want to help them. And yeah, a lot of times if we can answer their problems or get them through that, they're happy because we've solved the problem and the production issue is no longer holding up their business.
Right.
So that's a good feeling. Yeah. So I was going to say we the fact that we are real people, like you guys, we are approachable. We encourage everybody out there to reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, and all those things. We have gotten to know a lot of our customers because of our customer support. I would love to get to know more of our customers who are not having a problem. So if you're a SFTP Gateway customer out there and you like it and you don't have a problem, still reach out to us and say hi. Like, I feel like we a lot of times the people we talk to are the people who need help, but I'd also love to talk to a lot of the customers who don't need help. They're just happy with the product.
Yeah, and I mean that's how, like, I know you guys have talked about this. Has been going on for quite a while, where the roadmap and for the product and the features that you have decided to add have often been the result of feedback from
Hmm.
customers. Like, hey, have you guys ever thought about
Yeah.
adding this?
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to like what I said about just, cutting the string and letting the product go and putting it out there to get the feedback. Because as soon as you put it out there, that feedback loop is invaluable information. Like, it really can help you decide which direction the product is going to grow in, What markets are you going to really need to go after, because where are all your users coming from? There's just so much information that you won't know until you actually just take that first step.
Yeah, when you did launch it and you started to see the sales come in, um, did you pretty quickly find yourself doing support for people? And then was it pretty quickly that
Yeah.
you had to then ramp that up and hire people?
Yeah. I mean, I think Dan quickly got involved. Our CTO. Um, he we got a lot of support requests coming in. Like I said, there were a lot of scenarios for things that we didn't encounter. People using our product for massive amounts of data or giant files, and there were disk issues, or network capacity issues, things like that we just didn't count on. And so Dan did a great job with version one, you know, adding more stability to the product and adding more features that would make it more reliable. um, we knew right away when some of the customers that we had early on were some big enterprise, Fortune 500 companies, that hey, they wanted to use this for thousands of people,
Mhm.
and so we needed a high availability solution. So that's really what version 2 was all about. We wanted version 2 is when we first then introduced kind of a web-based dashboard, but also um, multiple instances with a load balancer, so it could be more redundant and highly available. The version 2 still had some issues, with these larger data streams, and it still was using the same core technology. And so that intermediary step where the disk could still fill up, still was an issue. But our customer support was great. We always kind of knew when people had problems what the problem was, and similar to our support, our knowledge base, we have a lot of documentation about the product. Whenever there was a problem that kind of came over and over again, we would document it and put it on our knowledge base for people to reference and solve themselves if they wanted to. But over time it became like, hey, here, someone would reach us with a customer support, and we say, oh yeah, here's a knowledge base that tells you how to fix that. And so that is really valuable, because you don't have to keep writing the same thing or researching the same thing over and over again. You kind of learn what some of the common pitfalls are, and you can just point people right away to the solutions.
Mhm.
Um, and then version 3, has been about a year or so now. Um, it's definitely our most stable and highly performing, and it's even easier to scale. We took out some, version 2 was synchronizing SFTP accounts using LDAP, which is kind of like a antiquated technology. We kind of ripped that out in version 3. We don't need it. We didn't need it. And so we've made it more robust in version 3 by having less dependencies on other, infrastructure components. And
Mhm.
so the result is something that actually scales a lot quicker and a lot easier.
So I think to kind of bring the SFTP Gateway story like all the way up to
Hmm.
now,
Yeah.
we've talked a lot about AWS, but at some point the decision was made we should launch this on Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Was there demand for it, or what? Kind of when did you decide? Okay, this is the right time to get on these other platforms.
I think we decided as soon as Amazon came out with their own version of the same product. So when AWS
Okay.
Transfer came out, it was pretty clear that our sales were slowing down a little bit. And, at that time, Azure was kind of taking the world by storm, so to speak. Um, they were growing very quickly, and they didn't have a similar product on the marketplace at the time. And so we were able to release it on the Azure marketplace also, and it followed the same growth initially that Amazon did. So when we first released it on the Azure marketplace, month over month, the sales were almost doubling. For a long time. It's flattened out a little bit now, but it's still selling very well. And I think now I think 53% of our customers are on Azure now. So a little over half of our customers are on Azure now. So yeah, it's been selling very well on Azure, and Azure has a similar native service in the works, which may impact our sales, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about that. Like, there's still enough differentiators for our product. It still performs very well. It's still very inexpensive. I think there'll be a need for our product, regardless of if Amazon or Azure have their own SFTP service.
Yeah, I mean, we've done the math too on
Yeah.
the savings people get if they use SFTP Gateway instead of AWS transfer or
Oh yeah.
Azure's new solution. And it, like, especially now with people thinking about budgets so much, I mean,
Yeah.
you could save potentially a couple $1,000 by,
Yeah.
if you're running it all the time, even using
Yeah.
SFTP Gateway versus one of those others over the course of a year, which is a couple
A lot.
$1,000 is a couple $1,000. Yeah.
It is a lot. It's significant. It is.
And if
And
you're doing it, running it high availability or multiple instances for whatever reason, then you just can multiply that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely a reason, still to use our product. And then obviously Google is we're relatively new to Google. We're on the Google Cloud now as well. We're kind of working on those early kind of sales there and trying to grow our presence on Google, which has been fun. It's great because we're getting, we're still, a software technology company, and we are gaining expert experience on all three clouds now, and even our developers and our engineers are now getting certified in all three clouds. So, we pass that experience on to our customers. So it's a great all around for the business as well.
It's really amazing how, like, there's been kind of a theme in some of the things you've said, how much happens when you just start doing the things. Like,
Yeah.
you talked about, okay, I'm going to make the leap and start a company. And then you said, okay, we've got this product. Are we ready yet? Nope. We're just going to, maybe we're just going to ship. We're ready to see what people think. And then you just do it and you learn there. And then the support, figuring out, okay, we've got to figure support out now. And then that's a good problem to have. Like, people are using the product. Let's figure out how to support it. And then now these other clouds, and the team is learning more and more about some of these other platforms the same way they became experts on AWS. As our product has, grown and more, newer versions have come out, and we've had more people interacting with us about those products. And I think that's one of the big takeaways for me, for people who are thinking about, doing something on their own, as jumping in, right? Like, do the thing. And then that's the best way to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. I mean, you won't ever know unless you take that leap. It's definitely a learning process. And, yes, you can plan, and you should have a plan. You can be prepared, but things are going to happen that you are not going to expect. You're going to have to react and figure some things out as you go. And things, even if, no matter how planned you are, we didn't know Amazon was going to come out with their own version of the same product. There's just things that you can't expect. So it is, a little stressful, but at the same time, if you can react and pivot when you need to, that's what keeps it exciting.
And by kind of doing the thing, that's when you figure out what people's needs really are. Like, once you get kind of your hands in it and you're talking to other people, finding out, what pain points companies have, because you're doing work for these companies, Yeah, I mean, we've even seen that with some of the work we've done with SFTP Gateway for companies who've wanted help deploying it, or
Yeah.
um, supplementing it, putting some add-ons in place like we've
Yep.
built, whether it's for decryption and encryption, or like the email alerts
Yep.
that people can set up now for when files are uploaded. Like, a lot of these things have come about because somebody needed it, and
Yeah.
they need it because you've released something they're using
Yeah.
that maybe you released it thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to put it into the world.
Well, right. And in a lot of cases too, like especially like the PGP decryption and the email stuff, we call these add-ons, but there are things that we also needed for real customers. Like, so whenever we are in a position where like, hey, we need to build something that our customers need, we make that available so that our customers can use it also for their customers. That's
Right.
sort of what the mentality is. And so add-ons, for example, are we make them available as open source. They run as um, cloud functions, or in AWS it's a Lambda. Google Cloud Function or Azure has a similar cloud function where it's like a serverless environment, where when something finally does land in cloud storage, whether it's S3 or Azure Blob or Google Cloud Storage, it triggers these cloud functions to execute, and then it can provide any number of like services on the files that have just arrived, whether it's
Mhm.
decrypting or encrypting files or triggering email notifications. There's other things that we can do, like checksum validation, or we could even just kick off other processing jobs once the file is in place. Auditing is another good one. Um, so these add-ons, they do couple very nicely with our product, SFTP Gateway, but people can use them even if they're not using SFTP Gateway. These are reusable modules that can run whenever anything lands into cloud storage. So if people out there have their own applications that are saving data to cloud storage and they need this functionality, they should check out the add-ons.
Yeah, and if you go to
Um,
our website, we actually have an add-on in the drop-down menu under products, so
yeah.
people can check those out there. And then I think the other thing we can tell people is if they have some other need that they don't
Mhm.
see there, we can help them figure that out too. Like, that's what
Yeah,
we've
yeah,
done in a
definitely.
lot of cases.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and you brought up a good point before about the feedback and listening to customers and what people need, uh, you know, and then kind of going in that direction. We're working on our second big product now, which is similar to SFTP Gateway, but a lot of people have come back to us and say, hey, we love your product, but not everybody wants to use an FTP client. Whether it's FTP is great when you're working with other big enterprises, or you're doing like corporate to corporate, server to server, like data center to data center transfers, and they're automated jobs. That makes perfect sense.
mhm.
But if you're having individual people try to transfer files, like trying to use FileZilla or WinSCP or something like that, it can be kind of hard to tell your client to do that. So we're developing a very similar version of SFTP Gateway that will allow files to be transferred in the browser. And so it's more of like a Dropbox, or kind of like a kind of managed file transfer, but you still would run it in your own private cloud. You would still maintain it. You still have the data doesn't ever leave your cloud environment. Um, and what's really cool is that we're going to let you white label it too. So you can give your customers a white labeled version or a white labeled interface to the cloud storage, so they could send you files without even knowing it. It'll look like your own corporate dashboard. So we're really excited about that. That's coming out in the next couple months. And so we've gotten a lot of feedback and a lot of requests for this feature. So if there's anybody out there who's interested in this feature, please let us know. We'd love to get your feedback and let you try out one of the early beta versions. But I think this is exciting. This is going to be our next big product.
Yeah, and the best way for people to know everything happening with that would be to get on our email list too. So I'll
Yeah,
plug that. So if you go to thorntech.com,
yeah,
it's right on the front page. There's a box
yeah,
where all you have to give us is your email address, and you'll get our newsletter each month, and you'll get definitely an email when our new product launches, or when we do updates to SFTP Gateway. So there's that. And if you want to connect with us, Jeff's very active on LinkedIn, and we have a LinkedIn company page as well. But you can also just shoot us an email either through our website, click on the request info button that's in the top corner, or just send an email to support@thorntech.com, and our team will get back to you pretty quickly there. We do free email support for SFTP Gateway, which I think is one thing that really sets us apart and also just helps us to interact with a lot of people. So don't hesitate to shoot us an email. Jeff mentioned Rob and Bryce. One of them will write back to you pretty quickly, and you'll probably think about raising them to superhero status after they help you with your problem.
They're good.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Jeff. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up here?
No. I think you said it yourself. I was gonna say, getting on our email list is, we don't bug you too much. Don't worry. And Mike does a great job with newsletters. I think the newsletters, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people I know who get the newsletter, and each month we'll send something out, and people enjoy it. So definitely check it out. Mike does a great job with newsletters. So
thanks. It's fun to put together. I mean, I love writing it up, just talking about the work that we're doing, and putting a cartoon in there, stuff like that.
It's cool.
And we'll definitely do more of these too. If people have questions, you can email us questions, and we can answer some of those then in some of these live streams in the future. And the last thing I wanted to tell people is, if you didn't catch the first one we did, Dan, our CTO, did a live demo of SFTP Gateway for AWS on that one. So you can go and kind of get walked through the whole process of how you deploy it and how it works. And he looks at it from like different viewpoints, like what it's like when you go to the AWS marketplace to first subscribe, and then as an admin, what you're setting up. And then he launches FileZilla to show you what one of your users would experience as they were sending your files. So it's a cool perspective if you want to really see what you're about to get into as you launch it for yourself. Jeff, thanks for doing this, and thank you to everybody who's checked this out, either live or on a replay on our YouTube channel. And hit the subscribe button on YouTube so that you don't miss the next one. And that's it for us on this version of Office Hours. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's been fun talking.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll talk to everybody soon.
Take care.